Is that good right there?
Oh, man. Too many cables. I'm going to see how long I can stand, so might make me talk faster. You might be in luck this way. We're going to continue. I'm hung up, son. I want to continue with our dealing with the family. There you go. But I'm going to stop for just a second. We began last week with talking about rearing children. That was lesson 1. Should be lesson 2 today, right? That's not happening. I want to talk about something different. I'd like to talk about the high cost of sin. Then I think next week we'll go back to lesson 2. I'm going to bobble around on this little series here. I'm trying to put it in a book, but I'm not going to do it the way I normally do. I'm trying to change it up a little bit. But I want to talk some at this time about the high cost of sin. David, when I think about the high cost of sin, I think about David a lot. There's other people that committed great sin. David, I don't know, he sticks in me because he was such a good guy, and yet at the same time he committed such a heinous crime. It just blows my mind that a man can do that, but he did. And I want to think of him just for a few moments and see if we can get a lesson out of him. David was a great statesman. He was a brilliant musician. He was a spiritual poet, and he was an exceptional religious leader. David, he had it all. I mean, the guy really had it all. God took care of David in every way you could think of, because David was going to do his bidding. He was going to correct all the things Saul had messed up, and he was going to put the kingdom back together and help it to get on the right track the way God intended it to, that the people would grow spiritually and that they would prosper in their daily lives. And David, man, he was a winner. He was doing everything right. Of course, he had a great teacher and leader, so I'm sure that helped a whole lot. He's referred to as one who found favor in the sight of God. Boy, I hope I found favor in the sight of God. Don't you? I mean, don't you want God just to love you? Want God to be proud of you? Want to be on God's side? Be his friend? David found favor in the sight of God. He was loved by God very dearly, very passionately. However, David committed a great sin. We read about it in 2 Samuel chapters 11 and 12. A heartbreaking time for everyone who admires David. At that particular time, David found himself with nothing to do. What do they say? Idle hands is the devil's workshop. Well, David had nothing to do at this time. He sent his armies out to fight battles with the Philistines, but he chose not to go. Even though he was the king and should have been out in front of the battle, he decided to stay home, and he did. And on one of his lazy afternoons, he went to his porch, and he looked down below at a house that was below his house. I've been there where David's house was. I stood there. And it's easy to see how he could look down from his porch and see a woman taking a bath on the roof of her house, which that was kind of the custom at the time. They did a lot of things on the roof of their houses. But David went out there, and she was bathing on the roof of her house. David should have turned around. He knew better, but he chose not to. He stood there and he watched, and he worked himself up into a fizz. He come back in his bedroom, and he had his servant, one of his servants, to go over there and bring her to him. And they did. The king wants to see you. When the king wants to see you, you go. And that's what Bathsheba did. She went. And her and David made a sin that day. And he sent her back home. It wasn't too long after that, come to find out that Bathsheba was with child. It wasn't her husband's. His name was Uriah. He knew it wouldn't be his child because he was out fighting the battle. David was supposed to be fighting. So David, he's trying to get himself out of a pickle. It would look very bad if one of his soldiers was out fighting a war he should have been fighting in. And he spent time with his wife while he was absent. That would not have gone over good with the people. So David thought, well, I'll bring him home, and perhaps he'll think that he was the father of the child. It was fairly close there. And Uriah came home, and he wouldn't stay with his wife. He slept outside. He wouldn't go in his house to be with her. The reason was all of his comrades were out fighting the war. And Uriah felt like he should have been there with them, helping them. And it wasn't right for him to be at home enjoying himself while all his comrades were out fighting that war. So he didn't spend time with Bathsheba. Well, David tried different things to get him to stay with her. Something had to win him over, but it didn't do it. Uriah just refused to do it. Finally, David sent him back to the battle. And he sent a letter with Uriah. And when Uriah got to the place of battle, he was to give Joab the letter that David had written. And in the letter, David said, in essence, this man has to die in battle. So, in order to make sure Uriah didn't survive, he was sent into a place to do battle where he shouldn't have been. There were people up above, and if you went in under them, up against a wall, they would pour stuff over the edge of the building, and they would kill you down below. And Uriah was ordered, he and his comrades, they were ordered to go and storm that building. And they did what they were told to do, and they all died. Not just Uriah. There were other men that died as well. David committed a sin. He knew it was a sin. He was ashamed of his sin because it wasn't a good look, not at all. And instead of owning up to it, once he was really caught, he decided instead to commit murder, and he did. So many people, when they think about the sin of David, they think about the sin of David and Bathsheba, and it was a sin. But when I think about this particular instance, I think about murder. I think about all the men who died by the order of David because David wanted to cover up his sin. David found favor in the eyes of God. And look at what he did. How could a man like that find divine favor? When we think about the grace of God, we're thinking about more than we can grasp. The grace, the goodness of God is much larger than you and I are able to get a hold of. God understood the working of David. Even though David committed such an atrocious crime. He was acting out of character. For one brief moment in his life, he committed this horrendous sin. But he was forgiven because he ultimately repented of his sin. When Samuel told David that God knows what you did, he knows what you did. You can't hide from God, David. And he told him what he did. And David repented of his sin. He was truly sorry, and God forgave him. God forgave a lot easier than I did. I had a tough time for a while getting past this because it's such an egregious crime against mankind. I felt so bad for Uriah and his partners. But the great sin here, I don't think is adultery, though that's a sin. I think of murder, which is so much worse. The child born to David and Bathsheba was very sick. David, he couldn't help the child. So the child lived for about a week, I think. And during that time, David lay prostrate on the ground, his face toward the earth. And he laid there for that week. And he prayed, and he prayed, and he prayed. And he fasted. He refused to eat. He refused to drink water. He was hoping that perhaps the Lord would forgive him of his crimes and to heal his baby. Please spare the life of my baby. Day after day after day, his counselors, his cabinet, they were shook up. They didn't know what was wrong with the king. He's about to lose his mind. Why is he doing what he's doing? They had to help him, or surely he was going to expire from malnutrition, if nothing else. And then the baby died. And they were afraid to tell David because what's he going to do when he finds out the child's dead? He acted as he did when the child was just sick. What will he do now that he's dead? So they went to the king and they told him, the child has died. David got up off the ground. He went into his house and took a bath. He put on clean clothes. He sat down at his dinner table, started eating. And that just blew their minds, how David could be doing that. And David, in essence, said, what else would I do? What should I do? What can I do? The child is dead. And then he said, I shall go to him, but he will not return to me. David understood that when he died, if he died in the grace of God, that he would see his son in the future. And since it was God's unwillingness to cause the child to live, David, knowing that a decision had been made, he was going to wait until the time came that he would see that boy again. It would do no good to mourn. From here on out, it's up to me, he's saying. I can go to where he is, but he can't come to me. So the ball's in David's court, more or less, we'd say. What might have been his most painful failure is the one recorded in 2 Samuel 13. However, 2 Samuel chapter 13, we read about David's son Absalom. It's another son. There are 4 characters in this particular narrative. David, of course, is the king and the father of the 3 that follow. He had more children besides these three, but these three are the ones in the narrative. You have Amnon, son of David. You have Tamar, David's daughter by a different woman. And then you have Absalom, who was a full brother to Tamar, David's son. So there's a half-brother, Amnon, and then a full brother and sister, Absalom and Tamar. Amnon, oh man, he liked the looks of Tamar. You got to keep in mind now, they don't live together. It's not like one big family. Amnon's mother and Amnon and the other children, they lived over here. Then you've got Absalom, his mother, Tamar, and whatever other children there were. They lived over here in this place. They didn't live together where they seen each other all the time, but they probably seen each other when they were being educated, things like that, like people do today when they go to school and they see their friends. Then they come back home and that's where they live. Amnon got to looking at Tamar. He pulled what David pulled with Bathsheba, and she got to looking good, and he raped her, his half-sister. Well, that was unsettling, to say the least, but nothing was done about it. I don't know, perhaps David didn't have the heart to rape his son for doing basically what he had done. How does he punish Amnon when he had committed a crime very similar to the one his son did? But Absalom, Tamar's brother, boy, he held it against him. It was eating at him, and it kept eating at him. There was a division in the family. There was a fracture in the house of David. The peace, the harmony that existed is gone, never to return again. And it began with this rape. Tamar, she's been blackballed. She's been with another man, which means she'll probably never get married in her life. No other man will want her. No other man will have her because she's been with another man, and that was bad. So her life is really messed up. For 2 years, Absalom waited and thought and got angry and angry and angrier. And then finally, Absalom commanded his servants one day at the end of the 2 years, "When I say to you, strike Amnon, then kill him." So the servants of Absalom did to Amnon as Absalom had commanded. 2 Samuel 13, 28 and 29. They rose up and they killed Amnon. So Amnon is no longer in the picture. David's family is shrinking. Then Absalom, he had to flee. He had killed his brother. He was going to be in trouble with the king, so he had to flee. And David mourned for his son day after day. I've wondered which one did he mourn for, Amnon or Absalom or both of them. So Absalom went to Geshur and was there for 3 years. David's lost 2 sons during this fiasco, and now he's got a daughter that's marked for life. Absalom has been absent from Jerusalem for 3 years. He wants to come home. He wants to come back to his home city, and he did. He was given permission to come back to Jerusalem. However, he was not allowed to see his father. He had to stay out of David's eyesight. So Absalom lived 2 full years in Jerusalem without coming into the king's presence. Absalom again became more and more angry. He was angry with his daddy. His sister had been raped. David did nothing. He never punished Amnon. Absalom had to take matters into his own hands so justice could be meted out. David's not fit to be king. Israel needs a better king. Israel needs Absalom. So that's what he started doing. He started politicking. Man, he was a slick politician. He was up there with the best of the best. He got to talking to people and persuading people to back him instead of David. He approached people from an anti-David perspective. Somebody's been to court and they didn't get what they wanted. They tried to sue somebody and they didn't get what they wanted. And Absalom would talk to him and he would mourn for him and how bad it was. If only I were king. If I were king, an injustice like that would not get by. I would have punished the man who wronged you. He did this for 2 years, so much so that he was able to build up an army, a sizable army of men in which he could overthrow his father and take Jerusalem. And that's what he did. David had to flee for his life. And Absalom captured the harem of David, which back in those days, that means I won. You lose, I'm in, you're out. And Absalom was enjoying life as a king. At least he thought he was. David ran. It wasn't long until David came to his senses. He can't run. He's got to go back. He did. And Absalom in the battle died. And David mourned for his son. He said, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would I had died instead of you, oh Absalom, my son, my son." I read about the death of David's son, and after that child died, David didn't mourn anymore. He got up and he went back to his routine as the king of the country. In this case, David is mourning, not during Absalom's life, which he should have been, but after Absalom was dead. You got the infant son of 2 Samuel chapter 12. You got Absalom of 2 Samuel chapter 18. Why was David's response between two sons so different? Why did he entertain hope when his son died, but not when Absalom died? What made the difference between the two boys? I think the answer is obvious. The child went to be with the Lord. Absalom did not. Absalom lost his soul. David knew it. He knew the child was safe. He knew Absalom was not, that he would never see him again. Their relationship was over. And David mourned. Every time somebody passes, what comes to my mind is, were they ready to die or not? It happens without failure. If it's a friend, if it's a member of the church, if it's a family member, that's the thought that always comes to my mind. I know they died, but where did they go from there? Would they be approved of God by the way they lived or not? And every time I knew somebody wasn't ready to meet the Maker, it broke my heart. The closer they were to me, the more it broke my heart. There's several people I love passionately who wasn't ready to meet their Maker. And I always grieved so much when they passed away, because I knew what the future held. And it's awful. It's just awful. And it makes me so sad. That's what happened to David when Absalom died. He knew what his fate would be. and he cried his heart out. Do we have any Absaloms living among us today? Oh, we know we do. There are Absaloms outside of the church. There are Absaloms inside the church. There are people who are not ready to die. And if they perish, we're going to mourn. Oh, man, we're going to mourn. We're going to mourn seriously. We're going to mourn. Because we know what the consequences are of not being ready to meet God. What if that's one of my children? Like David's. What if a child of mine perishes and they're not ready to meet God? How do I ever breathe again? How do I ever get a moment of peace again? When can I stop grieving? Why do these things happen? Why does it have to be so awful? Why do people we love have to perish? Let me give you at least 3 possible reasons. Number 1, the destruction of personal faith. I noticed on CNN Friday where they attacked Christianity. Christianity is harmful to your health. Basically, that was the point they were trying to get across. Why would CNN attack Christianity? Well, obviously, they've got an agenda. There's something they want to turn their viewers against, and that is Christianity. There are many people in our nation today who have no use for Christianity. Thank God they're in the minority, but they are in rich and powerful places. These are people who can do a great deal of harm. Notice the new mayor of New York City, Mabery. When they instituted a cardinal last week in New York, a very, very powerful man, Mabery didn't even attend the ceremony. There's 2.5 million Catholics that live in New York City. And they inaugurated this cardinal, and the mayor of New York doesn't even show up. Why? I mean, there's 2.5 million votes you're going to lose. Why? It's because he's a socialist. He has no use for God. He has no use for Christianity. He has no use for religious people. There are so many people in our world today who want to cause us to lose faith. That's what evolution has all been about. There was never any reason to believe in evolution. There was never a single fact. There was no proof whatsoever. And yet we were told time and time again that we evolved from lower life forms. Why did they do that to us? Why did they teach us such things? It wasn't science. It was science fiction. What were they out to destroy? And what do we see today? What do we see today with all the things going on? This transitional stuff. I don't even understand half of it. I know what the ideal is, that the woman becomes a man, the man becomes a woman, blah, 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 blah. If that's not the silliest thing I ever heard. People getting on television, they can't define what a male and a female is because there's no definition for a male and a female. It's a fluid thing. You might think you're a male, but you're really a female. God said there's male and there's female. It's simple. It's obvious. And yet it's rejected. How can this be? 2 Timothy 3:15, from childhood you have known the Holy Scriptures, which are able to make you wise for salvation through faith, which is in Christ Jesus, Paul said to young Timothy. Solomon said, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old he will not depart from it. Train up a child in the way he leans. Everybody leans in a direction. Some children, when they grow up, they lean towards being a hunter. They love to hunt. Some children, when they grow up, they lean towards being a farmer. They love to work in the earth, plant seed, and raise crops. Some people lean towards science. They got an investigative nature about them. Some children lean towards engineering. They want to figure out how everything works. Everybody leans in some direction. Well, whatever direction your child happens to be leaning in, train him in that way. Don't try to train an engineer to be a farmer. You're going against his grain. You're fighting what he wants to be. You're not going to make progress. You're going to aggravate the child. Train up the child in the way he should go. Well, I thought that meant train up a child to obey God. That's a given. Everybody's supposed to train up their children to obey God. But primarily in the mind of Solomon in this passage is training up a child in the way they lean. Just like a tree leans in this direction, people lean as well. Secondly, pressures of the world. Oh, man. It's so hard today to be a Christian child, to be a Christian parent. I slid in right under the line of having children and getting them raised before the world fell apart intellectually. Right now, parents are fighting you're fighting so much stuff. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I can't even digest this information anymore. And I just feel so sorry that you have to. And your children, what are your children going to do? They listen to this stuff. They listen to it on television. They listen to it in the cartoons. It smacks them in the face every time they turn around. And if they believe in God, they're mocked, they're ridiculed, they're made fun of. It's so hard to be a Christian. You're an antiquated religionist, they'll say. You're an old fuddy-duddy. That stuff went out with the old folklores. How does the child respond? Hard. It's hard. How does a parent respond? It's hard for them also. And then there's all the things that attack us. Lust of the flesh. How strong is the sexual urge in a 16-year-old boy or girl? I mean, man, them hormones are pumping away 90 miles an hour. They don't know what to do with it. But they see all these pictures, images, and hear all these words about what they should be doing. What do they do? Listen to a preacher? Look at him. He's old. He's crippled. He don't know nothing. Listen to their parents? Well, they're almost as bad as the preacher. They're 100 years old too. Who do they listen to? Hopefully the parents. But sometimes everybody but the parents. And terrible things happen. Jeremiah said, "Thus says the Lord, stand in the way, see, ask for the old paths, where the good way is, and walk in the old ways." I don't care what people call the gospel. The gospel is the way to live. You live according to the gospel, no matter what people call you, the best is yet to come. You're going to enjoy the best day of your life if you do that. And if you can persuade your children to follow that course of action, you'll be so happy to see your children embraced by God. You will find rest indeed for your souls. The third thing is parental neglect. You fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath. Do not torment your son, your daughter. Do not pick at them. Do not tax them to death with useless commands, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. My Father is kind to me, and I need to be kind to my children as well. My Father loves me, and I need to love my children as well. My Father walks with me step by step, and I need to walk with my children as well. One day, we'll be separated from our children. We'll have no influence over them any longer, except for what's in their mind. What kind of memories are we leaving? What will they do once we're gone? Will we see them again in the sweet by and by? Or will they not show up? I don't know. I don't know how the Lord will take care of that. There's no tears in heaven. But there's so many of you, if I don't see you all coming into heaven, be with me, I don't know how I could pass grieving. The Lord must have a plan to help us get through that. But look at your son or your daughter. You don't want to end up like David did. You don't want to bury your son or your daughter knowing that they're not ready to meet their Maker. There's no worse pain in all the world for a believer. Nothing worse could possibly happen to you than that. The things we'll talk about as parents, I hope you'll listen because it's very important. But for now, if you're not a Christian, God has put us here for the purpose of believing Him, walking with Him, so we can enjoy the abundant life now and everlasting life in the world to come. Life's been good to me, but I know that the best is yet to come. If you need God's forgiveness, we hope you'll come. Let us assist you as we stand and as we sing.